Okay, welcome back everyone to another episode of Martine's Musings. I'm your host, Martine Felton, and today I have a guest, Carla E. Criswell. She is an author and an empowerment speaker, and she is the author of the book, I Am Not Leaving You, I'm Loving Me, and I'm all about that title. So I can't wait to speak to her. Welcome, Carla.
Thank you. So glad to be here today.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good, good. I really, really love the title of your book. I'm Not Leaving You, I'm Loving Me. I am all about that title. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came to write that book.
Thank you. Well, my name again is Carla E. Criswell. I am a middle grade educator from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I'm a
Mhm.
mother of two. I came about writing this book about 2 years ago. I was starting my self journey to self love and self discovery. And after I put my thoughts to paper, trying to find a good title that could sum up my journey. And
Mhm.
so because the journey is all about me and taking care of me and loving me, I thought the title was great because it's not about leaving, bad relationships and jobs and friendships. It's more about doing things that's going to empower myself.
Right, right. I really resonate with that. So tell me about your process of writing it in your story. What's your story that led you to writing this memoir? Because it is a
Well,
memoir, right? Did I get that
yes.
right? Yeah.
Well, 2 years ago, I was just in a place where I was overwhelmed, overworked. I was trying to figure out, how these great things going for me. I have a house, a great
Hmm.
job, but I was
Hmm.
still missing something. And so, in the process of trying to figure that out, I just started to journal daily. And so, for like 2 hours each day, actually more than that, about 2 to 4 hours each day, I would get my Chromebook out and just type what came to my mind
Hmm.
and my thoughts. And when I looked back at it, I was like, wow, I've been through such a journey in my life. And I've been through so much not to be happy. And so I was
Right.
trying to figure out what I could do to be happy. Because when people ask me that question, I would get defensive because I had this mask on that
Hmm.
I thought on the outside I looked like I was happy, but on the inside I was not. And so trying to figure out what things led me to that place brought me to write this book. And so the process of it was just really being authentic, being vulnerable,
Hmm.
allow myself to address the past traumas and tragedies of my life.
Mm. And how did journaling help you with that process? Was
It helped me because it was a way for me to vent and be true to myself without feeling like I was going to be judged. When you put things on paper, it's not going to talk back to you.
right.
And so it was a great way for me to just be honest and authentic and just pour out everything that was really inside of me. And then it was also a way for me to go back and reflect on that as well. And
Yeah.
knowing that even though I've been through a lot of things, the fact that I'm still here, still standing says a lot. It shows my resilience, it shows my courage, it shows my patience, my compassion that I've had for others. But it
Hmm.
also showed me the importance of taking care of Carla and not being apologetic about doing that.
Right. Would you say in the past that you were like a people pleaser, that you always allowed things to just be, like, especially like in relationships and things like that? Were you?
Absolutely. I've been the person that wanted to make sure that everyone else was okay. I would
Mhm.
sacrifice, my own health, finance, whatever, to ensure that people around me were okay. And to some extent, that's okay to make sure that people around you are okay if they're going to pour that back into you. And
Right.
that's the lesson that I had to learn is that I can't be a people pleaser to everyone, especially when they're not trying to please me in the process. It has to be something that can be reciprocated as well. And I was losing that. And I found myself doing that, like picking the right people to take care of and the right people to love and pour
Hmm.
into
Hmm.
in return that they're going to do the same for me.
Yes, that reciprocation is really important, and also setting boundaries as well, which I'm gonna get into that a little bit deeper in a few minutes with you. But tell us about the book a little bit more in depth. What is it? What is your transformation story? What is your story?
Well, in 2009,
Hmm.
I became a co-defendant in a federal case, a drug conspiracy case with the father of my children.
Hmm.
And at that point of my life, I lost everything, my career, my home, cars, materialistic things, but also I lost myself in that
Yeah.
process. It was a public thing, and so I couldn't hide from it. And I was trying to figure out a way of understanding how I got to that point. How did I get to the fact that I've lost everything, the fact that I'm facing, 5 years away from my children, from my family, you
Yeah.
know, how did I get to that place? And so I thought about it started back before that point, even in my younger years of womanhood, I was allowing myself to be in relationships that were not healthy. I was allowing
Hmm.
myself to be naive to the things that are going on around me because of
Hmm.
the word love. I just felt like I had to endure a lot of things because I love that person.
Hmm.
And if I left, I was being disloyal and dishonest to that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. I was being disloyal and disrespectful to myself.
Right.
And so that was the beginning of my transformation because I was in a point where I had to rebuild my life, but I also had to kill the old me because the
Hmm.
next journey that God was going to take me on, anything that looked like the old Carla could not be in this next chapter of my life. And so I
Hmm.
had to do a lot of cleansing of not only my soul, but other people around me and understand that God has something better for me. And everything that I lost was not really for me. And in this next chapter, everything I was going to gain was going to be exactly what God wanted me to have.
Yeah, I like that. That you had to kind of, how you say, kill the old Carla and do a cleansing, because that's really important too. Because when we want to start anew and start fresh, we think we can just do that, but then we have to look at all the things that are around us as well
Mhm.
that factor into, what that new thing or that new person that we want to be. And it's like, if you were a former drug addict or something like that, once you, part of the, healing process of that is not being around the old stuff that you
Mhm.
used to do. So I kind of look at it the same way. If you want to be a new person, you can't be around the old things and the old stuff and the old people that you used to be around, because then it's all going to be the same. I totally agree with that. And how do you think that, speaking, when I mentioned boundaries a few moments ago, how did you, because it's all about setting boundaries, I think,
Yeah.
and um, how are you able to set boundaries for yourself so that you can make it all about Carla and rebuild yourself?
That was difficult for me at first because I
Mhm.
hadn't had boundaries in the past. And so I didn't know
Right.
what that looked like, what that was going to feel like. Was boundaries meaning that people that I love wouldn't understand that I'm doing things for for me that's going to better me and that's going to make me happy? Would they think that I was being selfish and not being, thinking about their thoughts and feelings either?
Hmm.
And so I had to figure out a way that the boundaries had to make sure that I was getting what I needed, um, without sacrificing, genuine friendships and relationships in my life as well. Because everything is not bad. And
Right.
so sometimes when people say you setting boundaries, you're thinking it has to be a bad thing, and it's not. It's just making sure that you're getting everything you need first. You're not
Mhm.
allowing other people to come into your space and disrupt and disrespect your peace and things that you have put in place that's going to make you a better person.
Right. So how were you able to rebuild yourself after, an ordeal and a legal ordeal like that?
Mhm. First it was about prayer and learning how to pray differently and build
Mhm.
a different relationship with God. I went to church and read the Bible and I did those things, but it was more of because it was more of what I was used to from childhood. With my family had instilled with me about religion and spirit and spirituality. I had
Yeah.
to figure that out for myself. What's going to work for Carla, and what relationship I needed to have with God as well. And so learning how to pray differently and build that relationship with Him. I
Mhm.
went to therapy. Sometimes in our community, we feel like that therapy is a death sentence or it's only for people that are labeled, insane or crazy or some type of disability. But
Right.
the therapy really was a way for me to open up and share with someone that I knew was not going to be judgmental, that I knew was going to have my best, interest at hand. It was going to allow me to talk things through, and also give me tools to help me be able to be a better communicator with people around me. I had a problem with communication.
Mhm.
I'm not a confrontational person, so I was silenced. And sometimes
Right.
people took my silence as a weakness and they use it as a weapon against me to get what they wanted out of me.
Right.
And learning how to use my voice and be um, powerful with my voice and making sure that I'm vocal in what I want and what I need from people around me.
Yeah.
Um, and not giving up. It took about 2 years after that to, you know, get back into my career as an educator. But I
Mhm.
never gave up on that, even though people were saying that it was over, I'll never get back into it. I didn't believe that because I
Mhm.
knew that was something that I always wanted to do, was to be a teacher. And I felt like that God gave me that gift to teach others. And so I just had to stay the course and do whatever it took to get back to that place. And I was able to do that with hard work. I went back to school, got my master's degree,
Mhm.
and I just made sure that I stayed focused on my goal.
Yeah. Because you had to shift your entire mindset,
Hmm.
and that takes a lot of work. That's not just like a flip of a switch. You have to be consistent in and doing that, and so that when you do that and you get to the place where you want to be. How do you feel about the self-love mindset? What are your thoughts on that, on self-love?
I think self love is so important. Um, but you have to also define what that looks like for you. I know that, we went through this pandemic with COVID and everyone was home last year. So
Mm-hmm.
self love and self care became a big thing because we couldn't do anything, outside our homes and,
Yeah.
and go out to places and travel. So we had to find other ways to keep ourselves sane and keep ourselves motivated and encouraged. And so I think it's important to define what that looks like for you. There's a lot of
Mhm.
books and blogs and articles that give us these steps. And
Yeah.
for me in the process, I had to learn that what worked for someone else may not work for me. And that's okay. It's about
Mhm.
my definition of what self love looks like. And so as long as you know what it looks like for you and you set the blueprint, and like you said, set those boundaries so people don't interrupt that for you,
Mhm. Mhm.
that makes all the difference. Self love is about experiences, it's about understanding who you really are. And it's about taking care of yourself, your mind, body, and your spirit.
Mhm.
Sometimes people think self love is just looking good on the outside, but self
Right.
love is also, yes, I'm talking about how important it is to take care of the inside because if not,
Mhm.
it'll show up on the outside definitely. And so, it's not all about, getting your hair done, nails done, getting a mani pedicure. It's
Yeah.
more to that when you talk about self love. And I think that's important for people to understand. It's about what is it going to take to make you feel good about yourself on the inside and the outside.
Yeah. Totally. And I feel like I agree with everything you said about self-love, but also I will add that it's also, connecting with your true self,
Hmm.
and being your truest self, your most authentic self, and making those decisions that are best for yourself and things like that. And it's easy. Like, I used to think, when we used to talk about self-love or hear about all this personal development information out here, and I used to see like self-love posts and stuff, and I'm like, I do. It's easy for people to say, "Oh yeah, I do love myself," because you
Hmm.
don't really think about the complexity or the that holes. But when you sit down, like I remember the first time I tried to sit down and write down like 5 things that I love about myself, that was really hard.
Hmm.
Have you ever tried that?
Yes, and actually that happened with my first therapy session, couple
Yeah.
sessions And the therapist asked me, like, what do you love about yourself? And I couldn't answer that question.
I know. I was like, but wait a minute. I do love myself. Why can't I answer this question? And it was so weird. But how did you get through that?
About,
I'm
um,
sorry.
no, you're fine. I had to first think about, what that really meant. What do you love about yourself? Well, that asked me, that question, is that something about, the outside of me, the inside of me, people around me, how I interact with people? What does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was like, well, I do love the fact that I am compassionate,
Mm-hmm.
I do love the fact that I am giving, um, that I'm able to listen to others and help them through their problems. But I couldn't do that for myself. And that
Right.
was the part that was missing, when he was talking to me about what you love about yourself. It's like I can give all these things to other people, and I
Mm-hmm.
have such a hard time doing that for myself. And so, what can I do to offer those things to myself? And so,
Mm-hmm.
that was the key thing the light bulb that went off. That was like, okay, Carla, it's time to do some digging into who you really are. Because if
Yeah.
you can do all these things to yourself, but you're having a hard time giving it to yourself, that's the problem. And before you can give to anybody else, you must be able to give those things to yourself. It's like with love. Before I can actually love anyone else, I need to be able to love myself in the same ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how did you get through the court case, and how did you come out on the other side of that, of all that?
It was about a year process, going back and forth. It was difficult,
Mm-hmm.
because here I am in the midst of in this court case with someone that I'm in love with. I have a child with. We've been relationship for so long, but also is the same person that has caused so much damage into my life as
Mm-hmm.
well. With infidelities, disrespecting our relationship. And so, at the end of it, I was able to get probation. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is my second opportunity,
Yeah.
to do something different. And what's so crazy about the self love process and journey is that even though at that point I was like, okay, it's time for me to do something different, the old me still kept showing back up. I was scared of the changes that were happening around me because I've never experienced nothing like that before in my life. And
Right.
so I struggle with, moving on as a new person. How do I handle that with him as well? Because we have a child together, so those
Mm-hmm.
boundaries of moving from being in a relationship to being co-parenting. Um, and then after that, a couple of years later, I felt like I had grown enough, and I felt like that we would be able to try it again. And so we tried to get back together. We got back together and we tried a relationship again. And I had my second child, my daughter, as
Mm-hmm.
well. And then after that, it was like, it's not the same. Like we had grown apart, you know. And even though I was trying to fix it and trying to make amends because we had children, of course, I
Mm-hmm.
want our children to grow up with both of us
Right.
in the home and be parents in that capacity. It just didn't work because I'd actually outgrown him.
Yeah, you changed and he probably remained the same,
Yes,
right?
I changed, and I thought I changed enough for both of us, and that was the downfall of me at
Mm-hmm.
that point because I felt like I had changed enough for both of us, and I had to understand I could not be his agent of change. That was
No,
something he would
yeah.
have to do for himself. And so now, we're in the process of co-parenting. It's difficult because he still sees me as the old Carla sometimes. He's waiting
Mm-hmm.
for her to show back up, and she's not.
He
I've
did
killed
it.
her off at this point. Yeah, at this point, I've killed her off,
Yeah.
and I'm ready for another journey into a different type of relationship. I know exactly what I want this time. Back then, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted our relationship or what that should look
Mm-hmm.
like. But I have my definition of love. I have my definition of what a authentic growth set, relationship looks like. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready. I'm ready for that chapter.
Yeah. And you're secure with yourself enough to know the value of what you bring to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Because
More so now than ever. Yeah.
yeah,
More so now than ever.
because I feel like I struggled with that same type of being in unhealthy relationships too. And I wrote a book, a memoir as well, highlighting those things as well. So we kind of share like that. We have that in common, and it's a like I still feel, even though right now today I'm happily married. I'm in in a marriage that where I feel like I could be myself, and
Mhm.
we have a healthy friendship and relationship, and we have children together and all that good stuff. I realized that even though I'm in this good relationship, I still was kind of bringing old baggage. And it was still turning up at certain points, like and I didn't realize that certain things would trigger were triggering me to start to thinking like how it was back then. I'm like, and I would have to talk to myself and be like,
Yeah.
no, Martine, this is not so and so.
Yes.
This is Tony. He's
Hmm.
a good one, right?
Right. And I have a chapter in my book called Baggage Claim. I think that was important for me to claim that baggage,
Yes.
unpack
Think
it,
about it.
acknowledge it. This is what I had in my past. I don't have to bring it in my future, though, and
Hmm.
understand what's going to trigger certain things that's going to make me think, oh my God, am I getting back into those same situations?
Hmm.
And so now I'm more aware of who I am, and I'm more aware of what those things look like. And so
Hmm.
I try to make sure that I don't even step in it if it doesn't look like it's it.
Right, right. But sometimes there's like a balance in that.
Hmm.
You don't want to be too harsh. You don't want to
Right.
be, send a good one away, or or so you have to find that balance. But so what would you say are, you know, some of your self-care practices? I always ask all my guests that. What do you do for your self-care?
For me, it's about spending time with myself. A lot of people are scared to be alone. And I was one of those
Mhm.
people. I was just scared to be alone. And so now being alone is something that I need to just, digress from everything that's going on in my life is a way for me to kind of process what I need in that moment.
Mhm.
So having a alone time, and sometimes just sit in my room, close the door, lights off, and just meditate. I journal as
Yeah.
well. So that way I can get my thoughts down on paper, and I can kind of reread it and reflect on those things.
Mhm.
Uh, travel. I love to travel, and now that outside's back open, I can do some more traveling this year than I could last year. But
Yeah.
even with traveling, it doesn't have to be even out of state or the country. Finding
Yeah.
a spot in your hometown that you can kind of go and just visit and do some things. Creative things, walking.
Yeah, I have self-care stuff that I like to do, and it's really simple too. In the height of the pandemic, actually, I used to be, well, things weren't open.
Right.
So but I was stuck at home. My husband was an essential worker, and so I was home working, and I had kids and the remote learning and juggling my job. So then when he would get home, I would be like, gosh, I need to get a breath,
Right.
like a
Yes.
breather. And we live in an apartment, so it's not like we had a backyard or anything that I could go to. So I literally would go sit in my car.
Mm,
I would go like to the drive-through and get me some Popeyes or something like that, and sit
yes.
inside my car
I've
and
done
sit
that
outside
many
my
times. Sat in the
car.
car and ate my lunch without the kids asking for a French fry and just enjoy.
Exactly. And I really considered that as self-care because
Mhm.
it gave me that downtime, it gave me that breathing room. And then by the time I would have that hour or hour and a half or however long, and come back, I felt better. I was like, okay, so when I got upstairs, you know what I mean, and if the kids were asking me for something, I was cool. I wasn't overwhelmed because I
Right.
had that time to release.
Yes.
You
And
know,
sometimes, our anger, I think our anger shows up. We get angry and we lash out because we haven't taken care of ourselves.
yes,
It's
yes,
not really sometimes what they're asking of us is too much. It's just the fact
right,
that we haven't done enough for ourselves. And so we're just
exactly.
overwhelmed and we're just like, but that self care, like you said, is a way for you to kind of just, digress and just have your quiet time, your space. So that way you are able to go and do the things that you need to do for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like coloring, like the adult coloring books,
Hmm.
to dabble in some painting and stuff like that. All of that stuff is really great. And that's one of the things, and I know this pandemic, we lost hundreds of thousands of people globally.
Yes.
But this it like that was like that's the bad part of it, but then the other side of it is I feel like a lot of people have really connected with themselves and
Hmm.
having to be, at home with your families and stuff, and really having to pay attention to yourself and seeing,
Hmm.
and getting to know yourself a lot more better because you had nowhere to go.
Right.
So
You
you
have
had
to
to
sit
deal.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of, unfortunately there were a lot of downsides to the pandemic, but there were also some things that really helped you out at the, also.
I agree. A lot of the pandemic gave people the opportunity to be still. For a
Yeah.
lot of people, that was the first time probably in years they were actually able to just be still.
Yeah.
Time to actually sit with their children, and talk
Mhm.
and play
Mhm.
games and read books and,
Mhm.
go outside and play. I hadn't rode a bike in years until last year with my kids. And that's something I probably
Mhm.
wouldn't have thought to do if it wasn't for, the pandemic and being at home and things like that. So
Yeah.
it also gave people a time to get their finances together, um, and to start thinking about what's next. What's next for my life after this is all over. When outside opens back up, what's next for me? So we saw a lot of people being able to plan life goals and
Mhm.
get things in place for the
And
next chapter.
start
Hmm.
businesses. I know first of all, I wrote part of my book during the lockdown, and
Hmm.
self-published it and did all of that during the lockdown. I know
Yes.
I started my coaching business. So
Hmm.
it was for me, I was blessed that my job allowed everyone to work from home. Still till this day, they are just going to go remote. And that was always a dream of mine, is to work from home so that I could be here for my kids, be able to go pick them up from school and not have someone else pick them up, and daycare and all of that.
Hmm.
So it's been a blessing for me. I've been blessed during this time, but I realize that not everyone is.
Right.
Um, so what about what's tell me the tail end of your book, because I started reading it. I got through a few chapters, but I'm not done yet.
Hmm. The book starts, in the process of identifying who I am, and trying to figure out what happened in my childhood or things I lacked in my childhood that
Mhm.
led me to some decisions that I made in terms of relationships and things like that. At the end, it's really about me realizing, that this journey is about me and that
Mhm.
this journey has opened my eyes to the possibilities of life and opportunities that I thought I didn't have, but I do,
Mhm.
because I've taken a step to take care of me and love me and appreciate me and set those boundaries where, I won't tolerate disrespect and
Right.
disloyalty, in my interactions with other people. And also the growth of me. Affirmations are so important. At the end of the book, I talk about that, how important it is to affirm myself, how important it is to acknowledge the great things I've done, but also hold myself accountable as well. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times we forget about that accountability piece. It's so
Yeah.
easy for us to blame other people for the
Yeah.
mess that we get ourselves into. But at the end of the day, you have to hold yourself accountable for your own mess as well. You made decisions and you said yes to things that put you in those spots and those positions. So
Mm-hmm.
owning up to that has made a great difference. And I talk about that at the end about the importance of, affirming yourself, acknowledging who you are, and holding yourself accountable.
Yes, I totally I agree with that. And what do you see for yourself? Are you going to be continuing to write more books, or what does the future hold for you in terms of writing?
But right now, I'm currently working on two uh,
Mhm.
works. I have a urban literature book that I'm working on.
Oh, cool.
And yes, so I'm able to dive into my creative side of that.
Hmm.
I teach language arts and writing, so I love it. And so that's a way for me to kind of put some characters together and have them experience life. And then I'm working on an affirmation journal as well
Hmm.
that
Oh,
I'm
that's
currently working
great.
on now. And so that one is it's not a part two to my first book, but it's kind of like a part two to my
Okay.
my first book. I just have to talk about the lessons that I've learned along the way, and I give some affirmations, some inspirations, and some quotes that I think
Hmm.
will help other people that are about to start this journey to self love and self discovery. And so I'm excited about the writing process and what's to hold in the future now that outside is back out and is back open. I don't have as much time to write like I did last year
Right.
in the writing process. But I'm hoping that I can get these works out by the end of 2021, beginning of 2022.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, yeah, definitely. And if when you release those, I would love to have you back on here to talk about those
Absolutely.
new books. So
Thank
what is
you.
what yeah, of course. What would be your ending your message to everyone here? Um, you know, what's the message that you want to put out to everyone before we wrap up?
I would say do not be afraid of what's to come. Fear
Mhm.
sometimes keeps us from doing what is best for us, and you cannot allow that to happen. Don't let fear distract you from what God has designed for you. Make sure that every day you show up as your authentic self.
Mhm.
Be true to who you are and understand that you matter. Your voice has power in it, so always use it.
Perfect. Perfect. So where can everybody buy your book at?
Okay. So again, it's called I'm Not Leaving You, I'm Loving Me.
Yeah.
It is on Amazon
Mhm.
for purchase in paperback or ebook is available as well. Or if you
Great.
like to, get a autographed copy of the book, you can contact me at Carla_Criswell at yahoo.com.
Great. Perfect, Carla. Thank you for joining us. And
Thank
for
you.
everyone listening, if you want to purchase Carla's book from her, I'll have her email down in the description. And yeah, thank you again for joining, everyone. I will be back with another episode of Martine's Musings, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay.